Hello, everyone, and welcome to Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. And today we are talking all things sheep because we are joined by Eamon Wall, who is the project lead for an EIP project called OV Data, which I know some sheep farmers out there will be familiar with. But Eamon, for people who aren't familiar with OV Data, tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, so look, the basis of OV Data, Hannah, is first of all, thanks for the opportunity for coming on the podcast. But yeah, the basis of OV Data is to use DNA technology to assign parentage to lambs. And you might ask, why do we want to know the parentage of lambs? It's really about gathering data on different bloodlines being used in people's flocks and to identify the better performing genetics within the participants' flocks, and as a result of that, then be able to breed from your better females and breed more efficient animals and more productive animals. So all leading to a more profitable sheep enterprise, I guess, at the end of the day, but a more kind of, I suppose, sustainable one too. There's obviously high in the agenda now within livestock farming is the sustainability of the industry and trying to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So that's an angle of it too, trying to breed more productive animals.
And because from my kind of suckler farmer viewpoint, we've had to genotype cattle here for a long time, but yet it's only in the last couple of years that all sheep have had to have been tagged. So it seemed a little bit like cowboy country there for a while. But that's all changing, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, genotyping, I suppose, for a lot of sheep farmers is still, it's still a big step, I guess, and it's the cost is the big barrier, really. The economies of scale for genotyping a suckler cow, that is a much higher value animal than a sheep. It's easier to justify that investment. Whereas, look, genotyping an individual sheep at the minute is costing €24.50. So look, it's a lot of money. It's absolutely not viable from a commercial farmer point of view.
And tell people what the average price of a ewe or ewe, wherever you're from in the country, would cost. So the proportion in relation to the genotype cost, just so people realize.
Yeah, so I mean, look, a cull ewe at the minute is probably selling at from anywhere from €110 to €120 today. That's a cull ewe. Maybe a breeding ewe with lambs inside our belly at the minute is probably selling from anywhere from €200.20 to €250. So look, that's what you're talking about in terms of ewe value at the minute. So compared to justifying a €25 genotype for that animal, look, it's a lot more difficult to do when compared to maybe a suckler cow or a pedigree cow. But for pedigree sheep breeders, that cost is justifiable for a lot of them, and the costs are coming down all the time. So hopefully that will continue to happen as the technology becomes more widespread and as use is increasing. There's all competition between labs, etc., and all that is helping to bring the cost down. So at some point, we're hoping it'll be at a cost that might be justifiable for a commercial farmer to fund some of it, maybe, or certainly look for a scheme similar maybe to the schemes that are running in the suckler industry, where commercial farmers would participate.
They are subsidized on the sheep side, and there is a sheep improvement scheme, and one of the actions that you have to purchase a DNA sire verified ram.
Yes.
But does that get complicated? Say if you have a big flock of hill sheep, for example, and maybe 200, and there's a couple of rams running around with them. I imagine that gets a bit complicated then, that you have to DNA all of the lambs if you're going to get 100% DNA verified. So you can see the price tag adding up very, very quickly on that.
Yeah, but I guess, look, the future probably isn't commercial sheep farmers genotyping their whole flock. They can get most of the benefit by buying a genotyped ram that that ram is coming in with a lot of information behind it, and that's going to breed the females then within your commercial flock. So you're getting most of the benefit with very little, I suppose, outlay, because look, the sires are really the most important animal within any breeder's flock or any commercial farmer's flock, I should say. Because that really is the going to dictate the future direction of your females. Are they going to be good females or are they going to be bad females? Up to, I suppose, pre-sheep Ireland and pre-genetic indexes, farmers really had to just, it was rolling the dice every time they bought a ram. Really, okay, you can tell a certain amount by the look of a ram, on the day of a sale. But generally, on the day of a sale, most rams look pretty good, because they're well looked after, they're well fed.
They've been prepped and primed for show day, essentially.
They
Yeah,
have,
they have.
exactly, and that's just the reality of it. But like, for traits that are key to a commercial farm, like milkiness of females, or their ability to, rear lambs well, their ability to produce a number of lambs, that's impossible to gauge by eye on the day of a sale. So
Yeah.
we've entered a new era now.
I was going to ask. I mean, because record keeping with sheep farmers, I don't want to say low, because that seems unfair, but it hasn't been quite as rigorous as it has maybe with other sectors, even even in regards to maybe dead lambs and things like that. So all of these traits are being recorded then and through this program. Is it in terms of the lamb vigor, in terms of a ewe's mothering ability and the amount of milk that she has? These are all traits that you're looking for.
Yes, exactly, and it's the pedigree ram breeders that are recording that and recording it very intensively. So I suppose the pedigree ram breeders are doing the work for the benefit of the commercial sheep farmer. So going back to the point of, we it'll never really, I never foresee a commercial sheep farmer genotyping their entire flock, because the pedigree ram breeders at the minute, to be fair to them, are doing great work to identify the better genetics for those commercial sheep farmers. So really, if a commercial sheep farmer just goes to their ram sale and buys a high index ram that is genotyped, they can really maximize the benefit of other people's work gathering data on those traits that you mentioned. So the impact on the commercial farm doesn't really have to be huge. They don't have to go to a huge amount of work collecting records, or the problem, I guess, when we ask commercial sheep farmers to do that kind of work, for many of them, they're part-time farming, and the sheep enterprise, it's a Saturday or it's an evening job, and there's enough to do, I guess, in that limited period of time. But you add record keeping on top of that, and for most of them, it's just purely impossible. For some full-time sheep farmers, it's viable. But for the vast majority of sheep farmers in Ireland, they're part-time, and they've got full-time jobs maybe off farm, and it
Yeah,
just
and the
record
returns are
keeping just isn't
low. I
possible.
mean, like the
And the
average
returns
income
are low, yeah.
for a sheep farmer, you look maybe 10,000, 12,000 euro. It's very low. Very subject to fluctuation in terms of sheep prices as well. Every sheep farmer out there will realize that there was sheep protests this week as well from the IFA and the ICSA.
So look, I
So
mean, yeah, the
it's
profit margin.
it's not easy, and then, like you said, to add to the next. But I mean, what I find personally from the genotyping scheme with the sucklers is, once it's subsidized, if you're tagging animals already, and once it's in the tag, it's very easy.
It is. Yes. No, it is. It is. It is. If it's incorporated into the tag, yeah. So it's trying to make minimal impact, for the actual commercial farmer, really,
Is there a mindset issue as well? Because we're talking about an older generation of farmers. You're talking about usually sheep farmers in particular. They're maybe in the west of Ireland, and they do seem to be an older generation.
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, and there's I suppose there's the perception that sheep farmers are slower to move, but what we found is, if sheep farmers see the benefit, they move quite quickly. The thing with genetic improvement, unfortunately, is it can be slow to see the benefit. And an example of that is, if I have a flock of 200 ewes, I might have 6, 7 rams on my farm at any one time, and if I go out and make the effort to purchase 1 or 2 high index genotyped rams, it can be very hard for me to notice their benefit across my ewes. I might not even know which ewes they mated with. If I'm running a group of rams together, which ram actually mated with ewe. So it can take a number of years for me to kind of notice, Jesus, yeah, my females are improving year on year. So it's different to maybe the suckler industry or certainly the dairy industry. A dairy farmer uses a particular bull. He or she knows exactly, what cow that bull was mated to, and they'll notice the females immediately. In the milking parlor, they'll notice,
Yeah.
right, okay, these females are milking more, or they're going back in calf much easier. So the sell is easier for a suckler cow farmer or a dairy cow farmer, because you know it's they've there's less animals and it's easier to notice, whereas in a sheep flock it can get lost, or it can be harder to notice. So from that point of view, it's a little bit more difficult to sell it to farmers. But look, Sheep Ireland has been in existence now for 10 years, and there are commercial farmers really, really sold on the idea of it now. They've been kind of committed to it over a couple of years, and it's over a longer period that they're now really starting to see differences. When they look back at, geez, what was I scanning, 5-10 years ago versus what am I scanning now today? They're seeing big differences. So, and that's very, very encouraging.
And is
And
that, I mean, I'm looking at the OV data project, for example, that obviously you were the project lead on, and
yeah,
the project duration was 2018 to 2022, and there was just over €500,000 in the budget. I mean, are people starting to see the differences? Say if they were involved since 2018, is that starting to make a difference to their bottom line?
yeah, it is absolutely, and year on year we've seen improvements in all those flocks, and we can see those because we're recording the data, very intensively, and the farmers are recording the data very, very intensively. you know so there's gains every year. Now, to the naked eye, I guess it's difficult to identify those gains. But when all the data is collated at the end of every year, we can sit back and say, geez, yeah, I know we've made another couple of steps now ahead of last year. And over the 5 years there's been significant data, or significant progress from the baseline data that each of those flocks started with in 2018. And a kind of an add-on, I says, an add-on objective of those flocks is kind of to act as, focus farms, or kind of knowledge transfer farms, as examples to other farmers in their area. And that's really how I suppose the message of genetic improvement is starting to spread now. It's good farmers, saying to other farmers that, hey, I'm doing this and it's working.
I imagine it's especially important to organic farmers in a way because you have nothing to fall back on. You don't have artificial fertilizer to throw on the grass to grow more grass. You don't have, it's much more expensive to buy meal. You can't just pump an animal or a lamb with meal before it's finished for the factory. So genetics is even more important. If you can nail it at the genetic stage, you've maybe won half the battle.
Absolutely. I mean, look at concentrate prices at the minute. you know, organic concentrate prices are up around €1,000 a ton at the minute, and even conventional, meat concentrate prices are at unsustainable prices, for most conventional farmers. So, the focus is definitely, farmers had that crutch, as you said, in the past, where cheap meal was available, and where there was a kind of a deficit in the flock, it could be filled with relatively cheap meal, and that's absolutely no longer viable now. So most conventional farmers now are probably, adopting an organic approach, largely, and we see that in the number of applications, in the recent organic scheme when it opened. But the big cost on sheep farms is concentrate costs, and they're out of control on a lot of farms because of the fact, they've been relatively cheap in recent years. And lamb price up to this year was carrying, I suppose, that concentrate price, and farmers were willing to put concentrates in. But look, that's no longer the case now. So I mean, genetics is without doubt going to be to the forefront, I think, or it should be to the forefront of people's minds now, because the gains that are available there, and they're immediate gains pretty much, they're just too big to ignore now, so, and hopefully the sheep improvement scheme will open people's eyes to that, and I've no doubt it will.
I guess as well, I mean, your involvement with sheep, you must realize that there's quite a few sheep farmers who have flooded into the organic scheme recently. I mean, what are you hearing on the ground? Do they have concerns, for example, about the price of organic meal? Are they, coming to you to look for more education around genetics?
Look, yeah, absolutely. Look, absolutely. It has definitely increased our focus in terms of what they're doing outside of the use of concentrates and fertilizer. And look, there's I suppose for anyone contemplating or already gone into organics or contemplating on organics, to just jump in and continue doing what they've been doing previously, is not going to work. They need to, I suppose, pay more attention to look the basic principles of sheep farming now that are being promoted by ourselves and by Chagas, and that's making sure stocking rate across the farm is correct. There's probably a lot of sheep farms in recent times have been overstocked, and using concentrates to kind of support that. And every sheep farmer now in Ireland, whether organic or conventional, will just not be able to do that. So getting the stocking rate right, and for organic farms, a key time of year and a key concentrate usage time of year is at the moment, in the run up to lambing, where you just have to have yours in decent condition. And I think in previous years where concentrate prices were reasonably low, farmers kind of were able to scramble a little bit and get condition onto yours probably in the run up to lambing by using concentrates. Obviously in organics, there'll be less ability to do that. I think probably in every organic sheep farm there will be a level of concentrates required, in yours pre-lambing. I don't think there's any way to avoid that, but making sure yours are in good condition, well in advance of the pre-lambing period is critical. Like, and probably reducing stocking rate is the way to do that.
Yeah,
and then
because sheep as well have been getting a bit of a bad reputation in terms of land, their use of land, I suppose, maybe, and their ability to graze things down to the very quick, and they do seem to be landing themselves in hot water these days.
Yeah, look, absolutely. From an environmental point of view, and there is areas, where sheep are seen as an invasive species, but
Yeah.
I think, if we look at the better organic sheep farmers, they've adopted a rotational grazing practice, and they're as good as any Irish dairy farmer now in terms of how they manage grass. And as a result of that, they're able to manage your body condition score throughout the year, and they're able to minimize the requirement for concentrates then at times a year like now, and when they need to finish their lambs as well. So that's that's going to be the next phase, I think, for all sheep farmers, whether conventional or organic. Grassland management and genetics are going to have to be to the fore of their minds, because that's how they're going to avoid concentrates, really.
And I guess for you and the work that you're doing, then what are the next steps? Is it continued education for sheep farmers, and how is that going to look? Is it outreach work? Do you go and across kind of sheep communities and talk to them? What do you do?
Yeah, so look, we're kind of in a constant phase of knowledge transfer, so farmer meetings and meeting of groups, and the we're only scratching the surface in terms of genetic improvement in the sheep industry at the minute. It's there's so much potential gains to be made. Some breeds are really leading the way. They've embraced genotyping. They've got the vast majority of their breeders involved in performance recording.
What breeds would those be, just out of interest?
Yeah, so some breeds are 100%, all their breeders are involved. But all the main breeds have the vast majority of their breeders are involved.
Like Suffolk, Charolais, or what kind of ones?
Yeah, so the biggest sheep breed society in Ireland at the minute is the Texel Breed Society. Followed closely by other breeds like Charolais, Suffolk. and then you have Belclare and Vendine breeds. There's we're at the minute, and the benefit of, I suppose, of what has happened in recent years. All those flock books of breed societies had individual flock books, all segregated from each other, and held in and ran independently. Over the last 10 years, all those breed societies now have come on board with Sheep Ireland and moved their flock books onto the Sheep Ireland database. And what that has, I suppose, enabled us to do is kind of maximize the power of their data and the data that they're generating, and that's for the benefit of commercial farmers. It's the same model as the ICBF, where all the data being generated in Ireland is being collated into one central unit, one central database, and that's by doing that you can maximize the value of it for everyone's benefit, and that's really pioneering, I guess, when we compare ourselves with any other country in the world, really. They look very enviously on what has happened here in Ireland.
And that'll probably help exports as well, because I know we're trying to get into a few countries still, so that's probably a key part of it too.
It is absolutely.
Yeah. Eamon, thank you very much for that. And if people want to find out more about Eamon or more about Sheep Ireland, there is a website, www.sheep.ie. It's very simple. But for now, everyone tuning in, you've been listening to Organic Matters, brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. And if you would like any more information on organics, you can go to their website, www.irishorganicassociation.ie. But until next week, take care.